So today we're going to be taking a look at Naraka Bladepoint. This is a martial arts inspired multiplayer action combat game. It's got a big emphasis on melee combat with a system of attacks and counters. There's quite a bit of freedom of movement with this fairly robust parkour system. There's a wide range of weapons with unique attack patterns and combos, hero characters with their own special abilities, and a few distinct game modes including a 60-player Battle Royale, a smaller scale all-out brawl mode, and 1 vs 1 dueling. Now, Naraka launched earlier this year on August 11th and has been trucking along ever since. It's done pretty well for itself, I'd say. If you head over to Steam, you can see it's currently got very positive user reviews. And they also have an update launching soon that will be adding a brand new hero. Now, this is a sponsored video. They wanted me to play for a bit and show you what the game is all about, and also let you know that there's going to be a 30% discount from now until November the 17th. So if you guys are interested, you can check out the link in the description below. And with that, let's just jump right into it. I played a bunch of Naraka Bladepoint this past weekend, and I want to take you through that experience, show you the game, and talk with you about what it's all about. All right, so for starters, let's talk about the combat. They use what's basically a system of rock, paper, scissors in this game. So first, there are common attacks, which you do by left or right clicking. This is the basic action you'll be doing predominantly most of the time, and these attacks cannot be countered. Then beyond that, there are the focus strikes. These are activated by holding down left or right click, which will charge it up, and this turns your character blue and then prevents you from flinching. So basically that means you will no longer get staggered by people spamming those common attacks, making it a great counter for those. And then thirdly, there are the counter strikes, which are activated by clicking left and right at the same time. These will counter a focus strike and then also knock the player back and disarm them. So essentially, combat in Naraka is all about balancing these three different attack types while trying to outplay your opponent. It's more or less the same idea behind a lot of fighting games. Your success will come down to knowing what your opponent is going to do next and then responding accordingly. So if someone is spamming common attacks against you, you'll start to use focus strikes, preventing the stagger from getting hit and then hitting them in return. Or if they're doing a lot of focus strikes themselves, you'll want to start counter striking to knock them back and disarm them, etc., etc. On top of that, the game's various weapons come into play as they each have their own unique attack patterns, range, and combos. As you alternate between left and right clicks, you'll chain together attacks in different patterns depending on the weapon that you're using. And then also, the third attack in most weapon combos will then trigger a special focus strike. Now, in my time with the game, it seems pretty clear there's a high skill ceiling. Like I said, it's very similar in a lot of ways to fighting games, and also in that way, really good experienced players will do very well against unexperienced players, maybe unsurprisingly. Fortunately, the game does have a ranking system, so if you are new, you should be playing against new players to begin with, ideally everyone learning this stuff together. In addition to the combat, another big aspect of Naraka is the game's movement. Basically, there's a parkour system that lets you climb pretty much anywhere. You can scale up the side of buildings, trees, rocks, and other terrain. All you have to do is walk up to an object, hold forward, and hit space, and you'll just start climbing instantly. There's an auto balance whenever you're walking on any thin platforms like tree limbs, and you can also pull yourself up from underneath ledges and even mantle up on top of it. I actually couldn't find anything that didn't let me climb up on it in this game. It seems pretty free form. And then on top of that, there are the grapple hooks. These are consumables that you'll find and collect in the environment, and they let you latch onto any object and pull yourself towards it. So you combine that with the parkour system as well as the fact that you have a double jump, and there is just simply put a lot of freedom of movement. So that's the basics of combat and movement. Now let's talk about the various game modes that you will be playing in Naraka. First up is Herald's Trial. This is a 60-player battle royale. It's got a match flow similar to a lot of other games in the same genre. So you start by picking a character, these unique heroes with their own special and ultimate abilities, and then after that you pick where you want to spawn in. So you're going to see this grid of the island and all available locations buttons for you to click. It's also going to show you where the high value loot areas are and the spots that other players have already picked. So this basically lets you decide, do you want to go somewhere busy, which is probably going to be around the high loot areas, or go on the edge of the map where things are quiet, gear up before you get into the fight. It's really up to you depending on how you prefer to play. And then after a short timer, you will spawn in and you start doing the Battle Royale thing. In the early stages, you'll be running around looking for loot. You will find armor as well as the game's various types of weapons like daggers, greatswords, spears, katanas. There's also a variety of ranged weapons. All of these will come in different rarities as well, from common gray items up to the higher tier yellow items. And the higher the rarity, the stronger the item is. There's also consumables that you'll be collecting. There are ones that replenish missing health, armor, ones that repair your weapons, as these will degrade with use in a match. And then you'll also collect spools, which let you make use of the grapple hook. Finally, there are these soul jades, which are these special items that give you passive bonuses like increased attack damage, health, resistances. There are even jades that give you special modifications for the different weapon attacks, which are pretty cool. So while you're running around collecting all this stuff, the other 59 players in the game are doing the same thing, and occasionally you will run into them, sometimes sooner than later, depending on how busy of an area you pick to spawn into. I have to say I've enjoyed getting into some early game fights while playing this. I usually do in Battle Royales, but specifically here, I find it fun while everyone's still on just basic items and isn't fully equipped with their high tier weapons, armor, and soul jades. Getting into those early brawls is always really enjoyable. And sometimes you'll get into these big multiplayer fights, which is always crazy, between all of the different weapon combos and special attacks, the hero skills, and then players zipping into and out of the fight with their grapple hooks. Things can get pretty hectic for sure. So as you play, you continue getting in fights and the match progresses, you'll also continue collecting better items, either by looting them from those higher tier areas and finding those better rarities, or just picking them off of other players, as defeated players can be fully looted, letting you take any of the items they had on them as well as their currency. So currency is something that you'll be collecting along with everything else we mentioned, and then the game also has these in-match quests that you can do that will reward currency. Sometimes it's to defeat a player, sometimes it's to go interact with an object or pray at a shrine, and these will give you a bunch of currency, which can be spent at these special locations. These are special chest locations called rift dealers. They will be marked on the map, and they offer some pretty valuable things. Specifically, there are these item, soul jade, and weapon bag upgrades that are really important, as they give you more carrying capacity for each of those types of items. Now, besides that, you can also buy the higher tiers of health and armor healing, grappling spools, weapon repairs, and then there's this lucky soul jade bag, which will give you one random soul jade, and a lot of times these will be of a high rarity, which is really awesome. And then also periodically throughout a match, there will be these special rift dealers that spawn in that offer high value items completely free. You just got to go up to them and interact with them, and you get items without spending any currency. Going to these is great for obvious reasons, but also tends to attract a lot of other players, which means that when you're there, you want to keep an eye out for someone hiding or just try to loot really fast, because you're bound to get into a fight sooner or later. Usually there is at least some really cool purple gear here, so these are highly, highly contested. And just like other battle royales, the game makes use of a shrinking play space. There is the circle that gets smaller and smaller throughout the match, forcing players closer together as the numbers dwindle to just try to keep the action going until the very last players. Getting caught outside of the circle does deal health damage, so it is best to avoid, but at least it won't instantly eliminate you. And then, of course, also like other battle royales, the ultimate goal is to try to survive and be the last player standing. Now, I started off playing a lot of this mode, but frankly, initially, I was getting my butt kicked. I was just not really good. So I took a bit of a break to try out the other modes, and that's actually what helped me get a lot better. I'm still not great, but I did improve. First of all, there is the Bloodbath mode. So this is a 16-player brawl that gives you a ton of practice in a really short period of time. It really helps to improve your combat, really. So there are quick respawns in this mode, so you will instantly come back instead of having to like queue up for another BR match. You just quickly respawn. But also, you have access to every single type of weapon. So this really lets you get acquainted with and play around with the different type of attack patterns and combos that each of those weapons have. That on top of the fact that it is non-stop fighting. You've got 16 players with quick respawns all going at it. This just gives you so much time to practice and get comfortable with that rock, paper, scissors mechanics of this game. And like I said, spending even just a tiny bit of time in Bloodbath mode really helped to improve my play. I just got a lot better at faking out and countering, and I got a lot more familiar with the various weapon attacks and the various parts of their combo chains, the different types of drop attacks and follow-up attacks, the focus strikes, just everything. This was really the mode because the stakes weren't as high. It's not like in the BR mode where when you die, you have to start over. Although I will say as well, BR does have trios, which it does enable respawns, but I was mostly playing solos. That's how I tend to like to do things. So preparing for those high stakes BR matches, the Bloodbath was really, really helpful. On top of that, though, there's also this Bloodsport mode, which is also really cool and quite competitive. So this does make for good practice, but ultimately it's a 1v1 duel that happens. So this takes place in a best of 3 format that lets you practice with multiple character and weapon types. You start off by picking a character and weapon that you want to use for each of the 3 matches, and your opponent does the same, and then both of you fight. So the first player to get 2 KOs will win and then move on, progressing through the Bloodsport tournament-like mode. Unlike Herald's Trial or Bloodbath, you won't be getting third-partied here, so this really lets you hone in and focus on your performance in 1v1 encounters, which I think is similarly important. You might feel like, oh, Bloodbath is better practice for the BR mode, but honestly, I have found that in a lot of the encounters in the BR mode, it's mostly been 1v1. There is a mix, of course. There are going to be matches where you're going to be getting a bunch of third parties with multiple people all fighting at once, but I was getting into a ton of 1v1s. So this Bloodsport mode clearly helps you get better at that. Okay, so that is everything about like the gameplay fundamentally. I also want to touch on some of the characters' customization and progression systems. So first, the characters. As I mentioned, there are 8 heroes in the game. These are all unique with their own individual skills and ultimate abilities. There is a 9th one coming out very soon as well. In fact, by the time you watch this video, that new hero will already be out and playable. Now, each of these characters basically fit a different style of play. So depending on what you like to do and how you like to play games like this, you'll want to pick a different hero. There's characters that have healing. There's characters that will lock players in this arena, basically, this like tornado. There are ones that do really good area attacks. There are ones that are really good at defensive. So depending on like what your normal style is and where you feel like your weaknesses are or strengths you want to highlight, that's going to kind of determine which of the characters that you want to pick. On top of that, for the skill and ultimate of each of these heroes, there are 3 variations of them, which adds some further tailoring of those abilities. There is a ton of cosmetic customization in this game as well. Each hero has a bunch of different unlockable outfits, accessories, hairstyles, and gestures. There's the communications as well as these card options. So all sorts of visual customization. And every one of the heroes in the game has a fairly wide variety of these different outfits and accessories and styles and all these things. So there's all sorts of different visual customization cosmetics for your character, and you'll take these with you into each of the game modes that you play. These come in different rarities as well. You'll unlock these chests that will contain a random one of these inside. You guys know how those kind of chests work, right? So you'll unlock these chests while playing, and then you'll open the chest and you'll get one of the random ones out of whatever potential rarities are available, and then you put the stuff on. It's a pretty straightforward like cosmetic system. And then also tons of facial customization that lets you adjust with sliders. pretty much every aspect of your character's face, which is pretty in-depth, especially for an action combat game like this. And I mean, you can change pretty much anything and make it look how you want. They have like a bunch of these community creations here, very identical to some other characters you may know and various other things, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's pretty nutty. And then finally, there are some progression systems out of match as well. So there's the talent system. As you level up, you will unlock these talents, and they let you modify things like your energy or rage generation, your luck, your Dark Tide coin collection, the cost of dodging, your grapple speed, the damage you take, your energy cap, your rescue speed, your grapple distance, and quite a few other things. You'll keep leveling up and you'll unlock this talent wheel, giving you access to more, and then each of these can be individually upgraded as well, making their effects stronger, and these just provide nice little boost to further tailor your character depending on how you play. And then the game also has systems of weapon progression to unlock skins and a seasonal battle pass, which offers additional cosmetics and currencies. They've also been working really hard with this game, evidently, to make sure they can improve performance on low-end systems, and that's something that's showcased as well in their relatively low system requirements posted here on Steam. And that basically covers everything for our look at Naraka Bladepoint. Like I said, I played for a few hours this weekend. I spent a bunch of time. Initially, I was starting off with the Herald's Trial, that Battle Royale mode. But then, as I realized I wasn't doing very good, I spent a bunch of time specifically with Bloodbath. I really enjoyed that 16-player all-out brawl. I liked having access to every single weapon type in the game to really get a bunch of practice doing those combos, getting used to the combat in general. And then after really sinking some time into Bloodbath, I went back into the BR and I did so much better. I actually ended up getting a few victories, which felt really cool. And just all around, it's a pretty neat action combat game. So if you guys like what you saw here, and if you're interested in checking out Naraka Bladepoint for yourself, of course, go ahead and use that link in the description below. I have to say, I enjoyed my time with it, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this video showing what the game is all about. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.